Kyle Carroll with MyMMAnews.com. I'm here with Chris Wade, fighting for PFL in a couple weeks.
3 weeks, yep.
Chris, tell us about your fight in PFL.
So 3 weeks, June 21st, I'm going to be fighting at the Chicago Theater in Chicago against Natan Schulte. He's a Brazilian guy, similar record to me, but this is a first round bout. This is my first regular season bout with PFL.
Awesome. And I saw a lot of like introductory stuff, and I guess you could say seminar and just introduction stuff for PFL. Tell us a little bit about that process and getting into it.
So Ali, my manager, he obviously has a great rapport with the old World Series of Fighting. He used to be the matchmaker there, so his ties to Ray, they run very deep, and he came to me with the PFL idea after everything that's gone on with the UFC. And as soon as he told me about what the format was going to be with a regular season following with the playoff and then culminating in a final and a championship, my ears perked up right away. Obviously, talking about $1 million, anybody's ears are going to perk up. But just that format alone is something that we haven't seen in so long in fighting, or ever in fighting, for that matter. And being a major sports fan, baseball, hockey, basketball, football, I think that's how every sport has to go if you want to be successful, especially in America. You got to have a regular season that culminates in some sort of wild playoff, almost like the NCAA tournament, where anything can happen, and you see where the chips fall.
Awesome. And speaking about that, obviously you're a big fan of the tournament format. How different is that, and how crucial do you think that would be for longevity of fighters, where you get some rest time? Because as an athlete, recovery is just as important as training.
I think for this sport to survive and to become the major sport that they want it to become, that everyone that loves MMA wants it to become, right? We all want that validity. Everybody that's an MMA person wants that our sport to be in the same discussions as those football races and the baseball races of the late summer. You want that that energy. You want New York, like Francesa, talking about the playoffs coming up for MMA. These are pipe dreams right now, but for this to sustain beyond just a little 20-year stint or so, where fighting is basically new, this MMA, we need to transfer over to something where, like you said, you're not on call 24/7. The way it existed, or in some other organizations, you got to train the whole year. You're beating your body up because they might call you any day and say, hey, you got 3 weeks, you got to go. You're like a hitman. You just got to stay ready. With this season, you're going to fight for like 8 month stretch, then you get a nice 3 or 4 month off season. You can rest, relax, take your family on vacation. And you're going to see guys extend their careers.
Speaking of family, PFL's right in your backyard, so you don't really have to travel a whole much, be away from your family. How important is that to you? And I guess, the further down your career with your family?
It works out to be a big bonus for me. I look at it that way because I do have my daughter, my family, and I don't like to be away from her for too long. She's very young right now, so it's hard for me. I can't bring her to travel with me to fights. I'm cutting weight, I'm getting ready to fist fight somebody. To have a 4-year-old with me who doesn't understand that, it's not going to happen. But maybe that day will come. I don't know if it will or it won't, but it's amazing. I just have to take a quick 1.5-hour flight to Chicago, and then after that I get to be home again in Long Island. So I think I just got lucky because I live here. But it's double-edged. I fought overseas with the UFC in the Netherlands, and I was grumbling about it a little bit, that I had to travel and time change. And that fight didn't go my way, but just having gone and traveled over there, it was almost worth it, to go experience those things. So I see both.
Definitely. Well, now though, the fights are taking place with PFL at MSG, and then Washington. Nassau Coliseum's going to host a few events, and then I'm sure they're going to release more venues. What is it like to be able to fight though in front of your fans, your backyard, and I'm sure you get the people wanting tickets last minute, but you go to the arena, fight, and then you're in front of see all your family.
That I got to live that dream last July with the UFC at Nassau Coliseum. It was amazing. Like since I started fighting, I was an Atlantic City fighter. I was like basically a Jersey guy. It was illegal here, so my home arena was Tropicana Ring of Combat, 4 hours away from here. Now being home, and like you said, I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls about people who want tickets because it's right around the corner, but the energy is a huge advantage. You go in, you see people really pulling for you that mean it, and it can help you if you have the right state of mind. It can help you perform kind of over really what your max is. If you're a negative person, you get anxious, it can cause people to underperform because they get tight in front of people that they care about. But for me, it gives me energy, We're used to this. We wrestled, in front of big crowds at home, and I always use that juice as an extra push. So it's going to be amazing again.
Awesome. And PFL, they're doing the $10 million for 10 weight classes, $1 million each weight class. Is there a base pay for each fighter, and then you win the whole tournament, you win the big bucks?
So the regular season is going to be structured just as the UFC or Bellator bouts would take place. Each fighter has their own contract that they've negotiated, just like a show win structure, same as all the other organizations. So those are, one guy might be getting, I don't know, 5 and 5. The other guy could be making, Jake Shields might be making quite a bit more than that. I don't know what their pay grades are, but once tournament time comes, you're not going to get the win show. It's just going to be the pool money per round.
Okay.
So I like that. You have a really nice regular season, and you're going to make basically what you would with the other organizations, fighting just a couple times a year because they have so many guys, and then you get the playoffs, and this is like, it's house money. It's time to just go get it.
Are you excited about the tournament itself and the regular season and the guys that you'll be competing against in your bracket?
I am excited. I see, not just even in my weight class, but I see a lot of guys, hungry guys, a lot of guys with chips on their shoulder, a lot of guys who people kind of counted out that I can't wait to watch go back in there. Truck Gordon, Andre Harrison, I believe is one of the top light featherweights in the world. It doesn't matter the organization. He'll beat anybody on any given day, and he never got a look. So it's time for some of these people to get what they deserve, and this tournament is gonna do that for them.
I know I'm excited. It's hosting a lot of New York and tri-state area fighters, but it's also going to be on NBC Sports, where it's going to be broadcasted live for free to the world. How important do you think that is compared to where the UFC now signs that $1 billion contract with ESPN, but you got to pay for the app for 20 fights?
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So 10 fights will be on like ESPN2, and then 20 fight cards will be on ESPN Plus, which you have to pay $10 a month for.
So what's going to happen to that stream they created?
I think that's where there's a big question mark right now.
So
I think they're trying to figure that out.
Sounds like someone made a good deal again.
Yeah,
Nice.
of money.
And how much of that money is going to go to the fighters?
That's, I think, what a lot of people
How much
want
of that billion? That's why I'm here. It's going to be great to be on NBC Sports, where people can see me. They can just change the channel. They have their cable, and they don't have to worry about how much is the pay-per-view, or what do I got. I have people of all ages that follow and support me. To get a middle-aged person, to sign up for the most basic thing, like name, address, put your card in. Oh, you get a free trial though to see Fight Pass. They're not gonna do it.
No.
They're not gonna do it. The viewership's in the tank. You're the first fight. It's shit. So it's so much better to be able to be on cable. Your exposure goes way up. And did you see the commentary staff that they put together?
Yeah, they're putting together a real nice commentary
I love
staff.
it. I love it. I saw Eves Edwards when I went to our conference in Florida a few weeks ago. I'm like, what are you doing here, man? He's like, you'll see. You'll see. And then they announced it like a few weeks later. Boss. Oh, man. It's amazing. There's a lot of good people on board. A lot of good people on board.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about weight training. Just training, weight cutting. I know I've talked to Sarah Thomas, who's been a teammate of yours, and about weight cutting and how much there's an issue with it for amateurs, professionals. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on weight cutting in the sport.
I consider myself, like, whether it's a cocky statement or not, to be like one of the more intelligent people in the sport that really thinks about what we're doing, almost to a fault. Like, you know, no one wants to talk CTE right now. No one wants to talk the dangers of weight cutting and then fighting. Or just the dangers of weight cutting in general. You could die right then and there from that. There's so much in our sport that screams that we all deserve more and more security. And so cutting weight for me, being a wrestler, hasn't been as much of a problem. I know my body. I've done this for my whole life. So I have a system that gets me down from the low 180s where I hang out, where if me and you were just hanging out during the summer, we went over to Fire Island, I'm in the low 180s, but I know how to control it over time and get myself to 155 pounds, seemingly somewhat healthy. You know, I've never got, knock on wood, I've never had any kind of crazy scares. You know, I get very lightheaded if I stand up quick, and I can't sleep at night. You know, I can't. My cotton mouth is like, looks like me, myself, and Irene. But there's some people out there that they haven't cut weight their whole life. They used to do other sports. Now they're fighters. Did you see the video of Darren Till?
Yeah.
Crawling out of the sauna. This shit has to stop. You know, they have to come up. And I'll tell you why they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it because fighters look better when they're all chiseled up and cut up. And people are cheaters inherently. They want to get ahead. So the bigger guy wants to fight the smaller guy so he could get the edge. You got to take it away by doing either same-day weigh-ins or cage-side weigh-ins. And yeah, the guys aren't going to look as good. But you know what? There's going to be water in our heads, and you're not going to get class action sued for $1 billion in a decade and a half when everyone realizes that you were encouraging people to...
Which I believe is going to happen soon.
Oh, it's happening, 100%.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because me and Sal were talking about that quite a bit, was you dehydrate yourself, and then you're getting bashed in the head. And
crushed. They're trying to kill you.
And then you think about pro football players who are hydrated and, you know, peak physical condition, and they're getting CTE from a few hits a game.
This is the example I always give, okay? And I would love for this to go across the MMA community, for people to think about and to answer. You see all those football players during the season go down, right? Concussion, CTE. Like you said, they're fully fed, they're fully hydrated, they're being treated almost like a prized possession. They're being stretched and physical therapy and the whole 9 yards. The fighter, can you imagine if those fighters had to make a weight the day before the Giants played the Eagles? Do you know the bodies that would be all over the floor?
Yeah.
There would be ambulance carts in and out of the game. It'd be every play. Yeah. Somebody would be down unconscious. Think about what it takes a fighter to pull as much water as humanly possible out of your body, all the minerals and soda. Your whole thing goes out of whack just to step on that scale and make the weight. And then a day later you crush each other, because that's the rules. And because you can't fight your natural body weight because everyone else is cutting their balls off to make it, or because the boss doesn't want to see you at that weight. He wants you down for, you know?
Yeah.
Listen, man, they deserve everything that they're gonna get coming to them some point down the line, but it's gotta stop. California, I see they do a lot. They're trying to stop some of this. I like what they're doing.
I would be a fan of, Wisconsin wrestling when I was coaching there. I don't know if New York adopted it, but you have to a half pound each day. So if you're 5 days away, you're only able to lose a couple pounds, and if you exceed a half a pound a day forever, however many days it is, you're not able to wrestle.
Yeah.
And it's all tracked through the internet, like track wrestling and all that. So
yeah,
that's
that's
a pretty cool.
Wrestling's
concept.
ahead
Oh, yeah.
of MMA. Wrestlers been doing this for a long time. Guys were dying in the 80s and 90s of high school kids of the same stuff that MMA fighters are going through right now. What they do, they took all the dangerous stuff out, right? Or at least they tried to. They tried to take out, rubber suits, saunas, like anything that a kid could use to over dehydrate and
Now
die.
it's baths with salt.
Yeah, dude, I sit in an Epsom salt bath and I just pull all the water out of my body. It's a wild game, man. It's a wild game. I love it, but I equate this to like back in the early days of baseball where guys were car salesmen in the off season and stuff. Like, we're paving the way for guys that are going to be doing a lot better than what we did for ourselves financially, but hopefully the sport gets it right and it doesn't die out before it gets any traction, because you see football people talking about if that's going to even last, and that's the most popular.
Billions of dollars. That's a pretty cool way of thinking about it, though, because I don't think people realize how new and young and immature MMA is, the game itself, the sport itself, compared to every other sport. And you think about it, only 40 years ago, football wasn't all that big.
Every major sport 40 years ago was what?
Yeah.
Like basketball was like what, 2 organizations? Football was 2 organizations that merged. Baseball was like no one was really making great money, a couple guys, but everyone else was like working in the off season. It was only finally when the players got together and were smart enough to be like, fuck you, pay me what we deserve, and the revenue started being shared either 50-50, 45-55, something where it's like somewhat close, that it elevated everything. It elevated the whole sport. When you keep people down like this, it's a different vibe.
Definitely. Was there ever a time that you thought about hanging up the gloves between while your days in the UFC and just before you signing with the PFL?
Oh yeah, we had multiple talks about, like, I was ready to just be done, just from being frustrated, being starved out, because after my July win there, I'm calling people out, I'm waiting for my next matchup and my next contract, and they string you along until the year's end. So I'm milking money from 6 months ago, waiting for that next phone call that I talked to you about, because there's no season, right? When a season starts in baseball and you're on the team, you know what days you're gonna fucking play, right? When this shit goes on,
It's a waiting game.
it's a waiting game. You're just suck blood from a stone at a certain point. So we live on Long Island. You know how it goes over here. I got a house, I got a family. I'm not waiting around going broke it, as a joke. Just hoping, hey, pick me, please.
And I'm sure they're not compensating for, cost of living out here, which is far exceeds almost anywhere else in the country.
They don't care.
Tell us a little bit how training's been going leading up to PFL and what you've been working on and excited about doing.
This camp has been awesome. I feel great. I've changed some things up. I don't want to say I'm getting older now, but I feel like I'm getting a little smarter about knowing my body and not just like crushing everything that every session I can get my hands on. And my body's responding in like a really good way this camp. I don't have those usual like hang-ups, like sometimes I can't even turn my head during training camps. I'm rubbing icy hot all over my neck, my back, so that I can just turn throughout the day, so I can pick my daughter up. And I've started to train smarter and avoid some of the things that can really put you in a rut during camp, and it's making me have more energy. I feel like I'm more focused on getting better. I'm I'm working on things that are going to improve my game rather than just grinding out sessions just to grind out sessions. You know, sometimes you feel like, especially when you don't know when you're going to compete, you're working without a purpose. You just sweating a sweat, and that's fine sometimes, but that's not okay all the time. And we have a real good system right now. We planned out my camp, and it's going quick too. When it goes fast, that's how I know it's going good. When it's dragging, that's when you're like, oh, get this over with, please, come on, when's it gonna end? That's when you start getting hurt.
Awesome. Now, with training and all, do you, being a wrestler, are you dipping down into your roots for these fights coming up, or kind of reaching back to them? Are you still sticking with them, but kind of reaching out and exploring other things?
It's another, like, one of those double-edged sword things for me, is that a tournament structure probably plays best to the wrestler because of the longevity of, like, making it through the tournament. But I have this huge chip on my shoulder at the same time about how it went down with the UFC, and wanting to show everyone that that I have everything and some. You know, I've shown flashes, but I've never really exploded with some of the stuff, especially on my feet. So I would say it's going to be a healthy mix of putting things together better. Not trying to shy away from one thing to just go gun-ho on a slugfest, but rather like setting things up to hurt people with the wrestler. Yes.
Awesome. What can we expect from you in your fight against the Brazilian, without giving away your game plan?
I am going in there with the intent to just dismantle him, maul him. It's good. You get 6 points, right? If you win in the first round. So that seeding takes place after the first 2 regular season fights.
Okay.
So if you just get a win, you only get 3 points. It's like a wrestling duel meet.
All right.
You get a decision, you get 3. You get the pin, you get 6. So I'm looking for the pin. I'm looking for the finish. So in the first round, like, he better keep his head on a swivel because I'm looking to take it off.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you get in the cage, and
I can't wait to be back in there.
Awesome
man.
having you fight in Long Island. So, Chris, best of luck.
Thank you, Kyle.
Awesome.